On the coast of Brittany, more than 3,000 standing stones run in straight rows across 10 kilometres of farmland. They were hauled upright before the wheel reached this part of Europe, before writing, before the first pyramid. Nobody knows why. For most of the last century, monuments like this were filed as crude copies of older marvels in the Near East. Then the radiocarbon dates came back, and the order reversed. 10 of them today. Stay for number 1, Newgrange in Ireland, where one beam of midwinter sun still finds the chamber at its heart, 6 centuries before Giza. Number 10, the Carnac stones in Brittany. Stand at the western end of the Menga Rose at first light, and the stones seem to march away from you in parallel lines until they vanish into the gorse. There are more than 3,000 of them here. Granite blocks the size of a person, and larger, set in rows that bend and converge across the fields. Recent radiocarbon work on a newly excavated section dates parts of the alignment to between 4,600 and 4,300 BC, which would make this corner of the Breton coast one of the oldest monument-building regions in all of Europe. The people who raised these stones were among the first farmers in the region. They had no metal and no written language. They quarried the granite locally and stood it up where they found it, which is why the stones vary so wildly in size. Raising a single large menhir would have taken dozens of people and careful planning. Multiply that by 3,000 across centuries, and you are looking at one of the largest coordinated building efforts of the Stone Age. And yet, not one row points cleanly at a sunrise, a star, or anything else we can pin down. A Scottish engineer named Alexander Thom spent decades arguing the alignments encoded precise lunar measurements. Most archaeologists now think he saw patterns that were not there, so the rows remain exactly what they look like. Thousands of stones, set with enormous effort, for a reason their builders never wrote down. Today, a farmhouse sits in the middle of one alignment, and much of the site is fenced to stop the granite being worn smooth by passing hands. The stones have outlasted everyone who ever tried to explain them. Number 9, the Goseck Circle in eastern Germany. From the ground, it is a ring of wooden posts in a field near the river Saale, reconstructed on the footprint of something far older. In 1991, a government aircraft photographing farmland in Saxony-Anhalt caught a faint circular shadow in the crop, a ring about 75 metres across that had been invisible at ground level for nearly 7,000 years. Excavation revealed a circular ditch, 2 timber palisades and 3 gates. 2 of those gates line up almost exactly with sunrise and sunset on the winter solstice. It was built around 4,900 BC, which makes it roughly 2,000 years older than Stonehenge, and one of the oldest structures of its kind anywhere. You will often see it called the oldest solar observatory in the world. That label does a lot of work the evidence does not quite support, because 2 solstice gates do not make an observatory, and the 3rd gate points north for no reason anyone has explained. What the diggers did find were the bones of cattle and of people placed there deliberately. So whatever Goseck was, it was not only about the sun. It was a place where the shortest day of the year mattered enough to build for, and where the dead were part of the arrangement. The culture that raised it left fragments of pottery and almost nothing else. We do not know what they called themselves, what language they spoke, or what they believed the winter sun was doing when it came through that gate. The reconstruction stands open to the field today. On the solstice, people still gather there to watch the light come through, which is the one thing about the place we can be sure was always true. Number 8, the Nuraghi of Sardinia. There are around 7,000 of them, scattered across a single Mediterranean island. and there is nothing else like them anywhere on Earth. A Nuraghi is a tower of dry stone blocks, cone-shaped, with a vaulted chamber inside, built without mortar and without collapsing for 3,500 years. The best preserved Nuraghi is called Su Nuraxi, which is located at Barumini, where a central tower once rose more than 18 meters, and 4 smaller towers were later added around it. The Sardinian archaeologist Giovanni Liliu uncovered it in 1949 after heavy rains stripped the soil from what everyone had assumed was an ordinary hill. The towers went up across the Bronze Age, built by a people we call the Nuragic civilization, only because we have no idea what they called themselves. And here is the problem. 7,000 monumental stone towers, raised over centuries by an organized society, and the people who built them never wrote a single word that survives. So we argue about what the towers were for. Fortresses, say some. Temples, say others. Watchtowers, granaries, clan boundary markers, the seat of a chief, even a kind of prehistoric meeting hall. Every theory fits some of the towers, and none of them fits all 7,000. They guard a landscape whose meaning left with the people who made it. Su Nuraxi is the only Nuraghi to have been completely excavated, and you can still climb into the courtyard and look up at the tower from inside. The other 7,000 sit on their hilltops across Sardinia, most of them never dug, keeping whatever it was they were built to keep. Number 7. The Hypogeum of Hal Saflieni, beneath the town of Paola in Malta. This is the only prehistoric underground temple known anywhere in the world. 3 levels of chambers, halls and passages were carved down into solid limestone using nothing but stone tools, flint, obsidian and deer antler, because the people who made it had no metal. It was found by accident in 1902 when builders cutting water cisterns for new houses broke straight through the roof of a chamber that had been sealed for 4,500 years. Inside were the remains of around 7,000 people, many of the bones stained with red ochre. But the part that unsettles visitors is one small chamber known as the Oracle Room. Speak into a particular niche in a low voice, and the whole complex around you seems to answer. A deep male voice, at roughly 110 cycles a second, sets the rock humming, and the sound appears to come from everywhere at once. Whether the builders engineered that effect on purpose or simply found it and used it, nobody can say, and the wilder theories about it run a long way past the evidence. If you are finding these as strange as I do, subscribe, because there is a version of this for every corner of Europe, and I am slowly working through all of it. Step back for a moment though, and the Hypogeum stops looking like a one-off. All across Neolithic Europe, people were pouring extraordinary effort into the meeting point of the dead and the sky, and the strangest example of it is still ahead of us. What we know about this one is that it was a place of the dead that was also somehow a place of sound. Today, the air down there is so fragile that only a handful of people are allowed in each day. Most who apply never get a ticket. The room keeps humming whether anyone is listening or not. Number 6. The Almendres Cromlech in the Alentejo region of Portugal. In an olive grove on a hillside near Evora stand 95 rounded granite stones arranged in 2 great enclosures, a circle to the east and a larger oval to the west. The oldest of them were raised around 6000 BC. That is 3,000 years before Stonehenge, and it makes Almendres one of the oldest stone circles standing anywhere in Europe. It was lost for most of recorded history. A geologist named Henrique Leonor Pina rediscovered it in 1966 while mapping the region, led to the spot by local farm workers who knew the stones were there. The Cromlech was not built in one go. It went up across 3,000 years, and at some point around 3000 BC, The builders went back and repositioned many of the stones, lining the whole arrangement up more carefully with the sun, the moon, and the horizon. Some of the menhirs carry carvings, shepherd's crooks, wavy lines, and sun discs cut into the rock by people who left no writing to explain them. A lone standing stone a kilometre away points back towards the circle at the winter solstice sunrise. So this was never a single idea. It was a place worked and reworked over 100 generations, each refining what the one before had left. If the people who raised these circles had left nothing else behind, this would already be a remarkable list. But the oldest and the most precise of everything we are building towards is still waiting at number 1. You can walk right up to the Almendres stones today. There are no fences and no guards. You can put your hand on a monument that was already ancient when the pyramids were new. Number 5, the Dolmen of Menga at Antequera in southern Spain. From outside, it looks like a low, grassy mound. Step inside and you are in a single stone chamber, about 25 meters long, roofed by 5 colossal slabs, the largest of which weighs around 150 tons. That one capstone is the heaviest stone ever moved by the megalith builders of Iberia, and one of the heaviest in all of Europe. Menga was built around 3800 BC. In 2024, a team of geologists and archaeologists published a study of exactly how it was done, and the answer was not brute force. The builders understood load, friction, and geometry. They sank the foundations far deeper than anyone expected. They tilted the upright stones inwards by precise degrees so the whole chamber locks together under its own weight. And they cut a level trackway to drag the capstone in without shattering it. The researchers called it early science, and that was not even the strangest thing they found. Most tombs of this kind face the rising sun. Menga does not. It is aligned instead on a mountain called the Pena de los Enamorados, a limestone outcrop on the horizon that, from the dolmen's mouth, looks unmistakably like a sleeping human face. Inside the chamber there is also a well, sunk nearly 20 meters down into the rock, for reasons still argued over. They built the most sophisticated stone structure of its age in the peninsula, and then aimed it not at the heavens, but at a face in the land. Menga is still intact, 5,500 years on. You can stand at the entrance, look down the chamber, and see the mountain framed exactly in the doorway, which is precisely where the builders meant your eye to go. Number 4, the Calanais standing stones on the Isle of Lewis in the Outer Hebrides of Scotland. On a low ridge of some of the oldest rock on Earth, 13 tall stones stand in the shape of a cross, with a single great monolith nearly 5 meters high at the center. They were raised around 2900 BC, older than Stonehenge, older than the pyramids. To the south, the line of hills on the horizon forms the shape of a reclining woman. The islanders call her Cailleach na Mointish, the old woman of the moors. And once every 18.5 years, something happens here that almost no other monument on Earth was built to catch. The moon reaches the lowest point of a long cycle. It rises out of the hills, skims along the body of the sleeping woman, barely clearing the horizon, and then sets directly into the heart of the stone circle. It is called a major lunar standstill. The last one peaked in 2025. The next will not come until the 2040s. Now, hold on to the difficulty here. To build a monument that frames an event recurring only twice in a long lifetime, you would have to track the moon across generations, recording where it rose and set for decades before a single stone went up. Whether the builders truly intended this, archaeologists still argue. But if they did, it means a community with no writing kept an astronomical record across human lifetimes and then carved it into the land. The stones are still freely open on that wind-swept ridge. Stand at the northern avenue on the right night, and you can watch the moon do exactly what it has done since before recorded history, rolling along the old woman of the moors. Number 3, Silbury Hill in Wiltshire. It is a grass-covered cone of chalk, about 30 metres high, sitting in a field beside a Roman road, and it is the largest mound ever built by human hands in prehistoric Europe. 500,000 tons of chalk were dug out of the ground with antler picks and piled up around 4,400 years ago in a single sustained effort that took an estimated 4 million hours of labour. In sheer volume, it rivals the smaller Egyptian pyramids, which is the thing to hold on to, because we began today in Brittany with monuments the old textbooks insisted were copied from Egypt, and here in a Wiltshire field is a chalk mountain to rival a pyramid, built by people who had never heard of one. So what is inside Silbury Hill? That is exactly the question. In 1776, a duke paid a team of miners to sink a shaft from the summit to the centre. In 1849, they drove a tunnel in from the side. In 1968, a third tunnel went in, dug for the BBC. 3 times people went looking for the burial, the chamber, the body, the point of it. 3 times they found nothing at all. No grave, no king, no room, just chalk laid down in careful layers, hiding precisely nothing. The biggest thing the Neolithic ever built in Europe. And number 1 is older still. In the year 2000, a hole suddenly opened at the summit, where the old shafts had finally given way. Engineers went in to stabilise it, and confirmed once more what every dig has found. There is no secret at the centre of Silbury Hill. The effort was the point. We simply do not know what the point of the effort was. Number 2, Seahenge on the Norfolk coast. In the spring of 1998, the shifting sands of Home Beach uncovered something that should never have survived. A man out shrimping found a Bronze Age axe head in the mud, and then, nearby, a single tree stump that had been turned completely upside down, its roots reaching up towards the sky. Around it, as the sand pulled back, stood a ring of 55 split oak posts, packed so tightly they formed a near-solid wall. Tree ring dating fixed the moment it was built with startling precision. The oaks were felled in the spring or early summer of 2049 BC. The central tree had been hauled into position with a rope braided from honeysuckle, looped through holes cut in the trunk. And then it was buried with its roots up at the heart of the circle. Nobody knows why, and that is not a figure of speech. The leading idea is that this was a platform for the dead. A place where bodies were laid on the upturned roots to be taken by the sky rather than the earth. A study in 2024 argued instead that it was raised to end a spell of brutal cold, a ritual to bring the summer back. What is certain is that it was deliberate, urgent, and strange, an upside-down tree and at the centre of a wooden room facing the sea. When the timbers were lifted off the beach in 1999 to save them from the tide, people came to protest. To them, the place was sacred, and moving it was a desecration of something 4,000 years old that we still cannot read. The timbers sit in a museum at King's Lynn now, preserved in wax. The tree still points the wrong way up, the way its builders left it, for a reason that went into the ground with them. And then there is number 1. Number 1. Newgrange, in the Boyne Valley of County Meath, Ireland. From the outside, it is a vast kidney-shaped mound, 85 metres across, its front faced in brilliant white quartz, ringed by 97 curbstones carved with spirals. It was built around 3200 BC. That is roughly 6 centuries before the Great Pyramid of Giza. and a full 1,000 years before the first stone of Stonehenge. It is older than the very thing it was supposed, for so long, to be copying. A narrow passage runs 19 metres into the heart of the mound, to a cross-shaped chamber under a corbelled stone roof that has stayed dry and standing for over 5,000 years. But the size is not the remarkable part. Look above the doorway. There is a small rectangular opening there, a slot we now call the roof box. For most of the year, it does nothing. Then comes the morning of the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. As the sun clears the horizon, a single blade of light passes through that slot, not through the door, runs the full 19 metres down the passage in the dark, and lands on the floor of the chamber at the very centre of the mound. For about 17 minutes, the darkest room in the building fills with sunlight. Then the beam narrows, slides back down the passage, and the chamber returns to darkness for another year. The alignment is accurate to within a fraction of a degree, engineered 5,000 years ago by people working only with stone. Here is the part that lands hardest. For most of those 5,000 years, nobody alive had seen it happen. The mound slumped, the entrance was lost, and the light kept arriving in an empty, sealed chamber that no human eye witnessed. Then, in 1967, an archaeologist named Michael O'Kelly, working from an old local story that the sun once entered the tomb, climbed inside on the morning of the 21st of December and waited in the dark. The light came. He was the first person in perhaps 50 centuries to watch it arrive. And the people who designed it, who understood the sky that precisely, who organised the labour of decades to catch one beam on one morning, left no writing, no settlement we can point to, nothing at all. We have their masterpiece and not their names. I have stood in a lot of cold fields looking at old stones, and Newgrange is the one that quiets me. They reached forward 5,000 years to a single sunrise. We still cannot reach back to them. 10 structures then, across 8 countries, and the better part of 4,000 years. Rows of granite in Brittany. A ring of posts in a German field. 7,000 towers on a single island. A humming room carved under Malta. A circle older than the pyramids in a Portuguese olive grove. A 150-ton slab aimed at a stone face. A moon that rolls along a sleeping woman in the Hebrides. A chalk mountain with nothing inside. An upturned tree on a Norfolk beach. And a tomb in Ireland, engineered to catch the shortest morning of the year. What links them is not that they are unexplained because they are somehow unknowable. They are unexplained because the people who built them could plan, haul, align, and engineer at a level we are still measuring, and then they vanished without leaving the one thing we actually want, not how. We are slowly working out how. The real question they left us is why? Why pour 1,000 lifetimes of labour into the sky, the dead, and the turning of the year, and never write down a single word about what any of it meant? There are more of these, there are always more. Subscribe, and we will go and find the next 10 together. Thank you.